This video couldn't happen without those you supporting me on Patreon, including the big patrons of this month, the Nerd Therapist and Xavius. Hey, Pokemon Masters, Birdkeeper Toby here, and I am filming this in 2018. Or am I? I'm not. It's 2019 now. Hello, welcome to the first video of the new year. But you know, how can you be sure? How can you be sure about the timeline of events? What is the chronology of the things going on in the world? I'll tell you what, to give you some more perspective, I will take you back in time to 2011. When I had a YouTube channel not called Birdkeeper Toby, not about Pokemon, but back when I was a Zelda tuber. Oh yes, I was a Zelda tuber. I made videos about the Legend of Zelda, and they were actually pretty terrible. I mean, they were basically just slideshows with really cool music that was definitely copyrighted. And it was me talking about the Legend of Zelda timeline and Legend of Zelda theories and that kind of thing. Although actually, some of those videos got like 100,000 views. Better than my videos are doing nowadays, but that's fine. Yes, the Wind Waker 94. The channel is gone, and I have thought about doing Zelda theories. I'm still unsure, but anyway. Back then, I was making these Zelda videos because something had come out that kind of shaken up the Legend of Zelda community. This book, The Hyrule Historia. This book contained within it some graphics, some lore, and of course the Legend of Zelda timeline. Because much like Pokemon or Mario or Sonic, a lot of the games that come out in those franchises, they come out in these little clumps where you kind of have, oh look, here's Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3, and here's Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and here's Sonic Riders 1, 2, and 3, and people feel this need to, where do they go? How do they go? I mean, I don't know that much about the Sonic timeline, to be honest. I did used to love that series. I should do a Sonic channel. And we have that in the Pokemon community. We do that a lot. I do that a lot. I think last year I did like 2 videos on the Zelda timeline, maybe 3. How does the Pokemon timeline fit together? How do these games, how do they all connect? And the thing that Zelda got that I haven't seen many of the other franchises get is an official response. We had a semi-official response, which was this tweet that came out about the Pokemon timeline. That tweet was very quickly deleted. And that was back a good while ago, and they decided to remove that. Maybe they liked having the ambiguity around it. And I think Zelda is a good example of where Pokemon could go wrong in the future, and why I don't think they're gonna do it. And that is because I think even Zelda regrets releasing the Zelda timeline. First of all, can we all just be clear? A consistent timeline doesn't actually ruin anyone's enjoyment of the game. Like, whether we have one or don't have one, we all know that Generation 2 and Generation 1, there's this story there. There's this narrative between Pokemon Red and Blue and Gold and Silver. Gold and Silver and Crystal are very clearly a sequel to Red, Blue, and Yellow. And we know that there's some connective tissue between Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald and Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green and the GameCube games as well. We know that there's some connective tissue between Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And that seems to be especially apparent if you do the Arceus event with the Sinjoh ruins. You get a sense of scale as to where these regions are in relation to each other. And we know that Generation 2 is a sequel to Generation 1 already, so it's nice to kind of theorize and hypothesize that these things might connect. We know for a fact that Black and White 2 is a sequel to Pokemon Black and White. And we know that X and Y comes before Pokemon Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon happened in an alternate reality. And we enjoy those games in these kind of little chunks, in these little bubbles, usually in New Generation, not necessarily. But suddenly you've got like 20 years of game history here, and you're trying to stitch it all together, and this is the problem that Zelda had, which is they'd never really accounted for all of that. Majora's Mask was a sequel to Ocarina of Time, but then so was The Wind Waker, and The Wind Waker is clearly followed up by Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, where the whole world has been flooded, but then what about other games that were set clearly after Ocarina of Time, where the world hadn't been flooded? How did these things connect in? What about all the other chunks of games? Legend of Zelda creators decided to make the Hyrule Historia and with it an official timeline. Although, and one of my favorite lines in the whole of the Hyrule Historia, this chronicle merely collects information that is believed to be true at this time. There are many obscured and unanswered secrets that still lie within this tale, and as the story and the storytellers of Hyrule change, so does its history. Hyrule's history is a continuously woven tapestry of events, and changes that seem inconsequential and disregarded without a thought could evolve at some point and hatch new legends, and perhaps this tapestry of history itself. What they're saying is, new things could come along, and the timeline thing could be could be moot. The storytellers change, the stories change, and so with it, the whole thing can get rejigged at any point. The Pokemon timeline that got tweeted out was just after ORAS. We had only just learned about multiple dimensions and different things then. We certainly didn't have like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon where we knew about Ultra Wormholes and a whole other bunch of weird little zany world building things. We keep on getting given a lot of new information, and I don't always think the game's creators are necessarily thinking about 20 years ago. I mean, heck, with the Hyrule Historia, it has already changed. I think they've rearranged the Zelda Oracle games, and they've also changed the nature of Majora's Mask, whether it's in a dream world or not. They can't decide, and they don't want to decide. Really, the video game timeline of Zelda should only really exist in the minds of fans, in the minds of the storytellers. It should be up to us to enjoy and work out how much fun we're going to have creating the thing. But there sort of shouldn't be official answers. And I think Pokemon is leaning in this direction as well. For example, here's the reason that the Pokemon timeline makes absolutely no sense now, and why I think that they're doing it on purpose. In Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, the character of Mina reappears as a younger version of herself from Pokemon Sun and Moon. In Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, she is 13 according to some concept art, and because you have to be younger than 20 to be a trial captain, she has to be younger than 20, so 19 at most, in Pokemon Sun and Moon. That means that the whole timeline is 6 years, which already goes in the face of previous timelines I've talked about. But working backwards from Sun and Moon, we know, due to other concept art to do with the character of Grimsley, that Sun and Moon happens 2 years after Black and White 2. And we know that Black and White 2 happens at least 2 years after Black and White. So that's 4 of your 6 years right there. We also know, according to Sabrina in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, that another challenger will come and face her in 2 years' time. She's referring to the characters from Pokemon Gold and Silver or Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So that's your other 2 years there. That's the 6 years. Which doesn't account at all for the generations 3, 4, or 6 games. At all. And also means that Generation 2 is happening at the same time as the beginning of Generation 5, which doesn't really make sense for 2 reasons. Number 1, there's a character of Caitlyn who appears in the Battle Frontier in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. She actually ages between there and Black and White, and yet if they're happening at the same time, that obviously can't happen. And also there's a Team Rocket grunt who's a grunt in Heart Gold Soul Silver who then grows up and has a family and has a kid by the time of Black and White. So again, those games can't happen at the same time. When you begin taking into an account every official document and every bit of evidence, you can't, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just contradictory. You have to pick and choose something or eliminate some bit of information or work out a theory as to why one of those things aren't the case and actually the timeline is 20 years or actually the timeline is 15 years or 10 years, which is great because as internet fans, that is our job. But the concern is that, of course, if Pokemon were to go, okay, look, we'll just put this to bed, we're going to create an official timeline, and they do, then some other bit of official either in-game canon or concept art or something like that, something will have to be disregarded. And the fact of the matter is, the games aren't made that way anyway. The games are made in these little clumps. Generation 1 and 2 are clearly a clump, Generation 3 is a clump, Generation 4 is a clump, Black and White and Black and White 2, that's a story, and X and Y, that kind of bleeds into Sun and Moon because they never finished the Zygarde story, there was never any Pokemon Z version. So Generation 6 and 7 are kind of a clump as well, we like our little clumps. But there isn't some overarching story that covers the whole of Pokemon, not really. I think it's fun for us as fans to look into it, to deep dive and to work out how these things will connect, what the timeline actually is. I love that thing so much that there is actually a subplot to this channel involving characters that have appeared on this channel with timelines and things. It was part of a whole big augmented reality game I did last year. But my hope is that we get to keep guessing and we never actually get an official answer. I think the excitement is in the journey, in the working out. And I think Nintendo have realized this. Because then they released Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game that confuses all Zelda fans in terms of the timeline, which one of the timeline spokes it goes in. Because, and just for any of you uninitiated with the Zelda universe, there are 3 different timeline splits, 3 multiverses, and stuff from all 3 of them are in this one game, but this one game clearly is the latest game in the timeline to happen. I think this is Nintendo's way of going, do you know what, we don't care about that so much. The specifics aren't as important as just enjoying a fun story and playing a fun game. We can see this, for example, with the likes of Mario. You could, if you want, theorize that Mario Sunshine is a prequel to Mario Galaxy and Mario Odyssey is a sequel to Mario Galaxy 2, but like, why? Granted, Mario isn't a game as full of lore, supposedly, as like, say, Zelda or maybe Pokemon is, but certainly I think the point is just to enjoy fun games. I've been racking my head over the Pokemon timeline since the release of Let's Go last year, and this year with Generation 8, I'm gonna have fun guessing, but my hope about all of these things is just let's not get an official one. But that, of course, is my personal opinion. Would you like to see an official Pokemon timeline? Is that something people would want? Because, I don't know, I feel like people wanted it with Zelda, and then it came out, and then people didn't want it. But that's just my point of view. That's just how I see things. Also, should I start up the Wind Waker 94 again? Should I start my Zelda channel? Welcome back to the new year of videos. This new year, I think the beginning part of this year is going to be a little bit more experimental than usual. We all know that Gen 8 is coming out at some point this year. There'll be lots of new Pokemon. There'll be lots of videos I can do that are going to keep the views up and keep the channel afloat and that kind of thing. But now, while I'm in January and I'm not earning much money and we're not getting many views anyway, I'm just going to try and be a little bit more experimental, and I'd love it if you came along for the ride. And that's not to say those videos I'll do about Gen 8 will just be money grabs. Just the fact of the matter is when I'm doing those videos about the latest things and the topical things, and I'm doing my evolutionary tree about Gen 8 and all of those things, like, I know the channel is going to be looked after when we get to that point in the year, and I'll be really screwed if Generation 8 doesn't get announced this year. So for now, I'm just going to try and have some fun and be a little bit more chill with the channel. I hope you're having a great start to your year, and of course, soar high, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a